The milling in our area began in the first real mill was put in 1862 in Milford, and that's just down the way from us. And it was the first time that the people who were in this area who had begun to settle this area, started to produce a flour and the ability to sustain life in a really harsh climate. Because once winter hit in this particular area of California, you're cut off. So it's, now we have freeways, that you can head down to Reno and get to really simply. But back then, they didn't. If you didn't prepare, you didn't have that, you did not eat, and a lot of people struggled to survive. And so in 1862, when they started doing the flour milling, people were homesteading all over this place, and wheat was the staple that everybody grew. And it was really big. They were producing so much wheat by the end of the 1800s that we were a big contributor to the north part of the state. We also contributed to the war effort because a lot of the stuff we would ship out, down to Sacramento Valley, it was also being dispersed in Europe and other areas. Because you have to remember that in 1862, they're starting the mill. And 1864, Nevada becomes a state. So now you have the Civil War going, you have all these different things going on in our state. People are flooding to California, one for gold, one for a new way of life, one to own land because it was so expensive, back east. First milling began in 1862, then in I think it was 1874 that Janesville Flour Mill started. And then from Janesville in 1896, it went down to Honey Lake Flour Mills, which was in the Johnsonville area. There was 4 mill sites, and it was Milford, Janesville, and Susanville, Johnsonville area. And they had 4 different mills that came in, and they all did something different. They were all improving. It's really neat to see that all the way to 1930s is when we were still part of the grain industry in this area. And then it just stopped, I know that in one part of the, at one time, the state of California was growing also potatoes. And that market did not move. The war was happening, things were going on. So what they did is, instead of pushing the wheat like they were, they said potatoes are now going to be the big thing. And for every serving of wheat, we're going to give 3 servings of potatoes because they're way better. And this is going to be way more nutritious for you. And this is going to be the way that, the government was like, this is what we need the consumers to do. So everything flopped, and all of a sudden people weren't moving their wheat. And so farmers having to adapt, typical of what we have to do, they went into more of the cattle in our area. We started seeing all the small mills being bought off by bigger mills, and that was in the 20s and 30s. They'd pick off little mills that were doing really well in different areas, and so they would be oh, well, we'll take you over. You could still produce flour, but you're going to do it this way, and you're going to be now named this. And so that happened a whole lot.
Throughout California.
Oh, the whole state. And then it narrowed down to just the top. I think there was 3 in that. And so it was interesting. Central Milling was one of those. They were one of the really big conglomerates that all of a sudden they had a lot of these smaller mills, and you started to see the change. Our area where we're at in our elevations, our soils, what we're doing, we're certified organic. So the things that we put into that soil is really going to matter what that wheat is going to taste like, and how it's going to change from area to area, I think.
And I really think that's going to be a biggie, because it's almost going to be like what California has turned wine into. What our grains are going to be flavored like is going to be much different than what you might find in the Sacramento Valley or down towards LA. And that's good, because the grains down there, if you find that tasteful and you can utilize that for something else, you may want our grain for a different type of flavor, because they're not the same. They're going to be slightly different. But now people can do that. We're not mixing everything together. So anyway, the California does have that capabilities, and I think you're putting the message out correctly on how California can become such a big part of the grain industry again as it once was. But we're appreciating it in a different way because it's coming straight from the farmer. It's getting milled right by the farmer or the small mills in your area.
Well, and the other thing in celebrating the diversity of all the small mills, if you know that we used to have, I feel resurrecting that and having it come back to life. It's going to be like one, vineyard after vineyard in the grape industry. Wheat is what made California. We literally needed it. It was more valuable than gold than at sometimes. That's why I always say I'm glad there's gold in them Bar Hills again, because it's exciting to see that come back. People care. They want to know. They want to be able to go, wow, there's the wheat in the field and it's being milled over here. And it's all the same people.